How you going everyone? Welcome to the first video of my channel, Absurd Games. I'm majoring in software engineering at university and I'm an aspiring indie game dev. I've always been interested in what goes into video games and thought I'd have a go at making them myself. This is also pretty much my introduction to C# and the Unity game engine, except for a thing I did for a uni assignment that I called Miyamoto's Run. It was supposed to be a game or video that taught its audience about a game genre of my choice. I left it to the last few days though, so I copped out, settled on platformers, and slapped together this silly little platformer about platformers. How meta. I found most of the art online though, and there weren't any game mechanics, except for the mostly copy and pasted move and jump scripts. Basically, it was barely a game, but to be fair, it wasn't really supposed to be. Now I want to make an actual game, and from scratch, while still using an engine which does all the heavy lifting in the rendering, animation, physics, and collision detection departments. Even though I'm doing this first game in Unity, I want to try out a few different game engines for different game types, and possibly even learn how to make one myself at some point in the future, with OpenGL or Vulkan. This time I want to understand every piece of code that I use and slowly build my C# and Unity class vocabulary, and learn more and more about game design, level design, character design, UI, testing, theming, even marketing. I'm especially interested in the design of puzzle adventure games. Some of my favourites are The Witness, Outer Wilds, Return of the Obra Dinn, Bubba Is You, Steven's Sausage Roll, The Talos Principle, Fez, obviously the Portal series. I like a game that can make you feel clever and silly at the same time when you have that aha moment. Anything with the slightest inkling of puzzle or adventure elements gets me going really. Metroidvanias, immersive sims, walking sims, exploration games, stealth games, Wordle. On this channel I'll share with you my game development journey. I'll show you how I design, code, and test my games, as well as all the challenges and successes that come with it. I've stopped and started working on this game so many times in the past year or so, but every time I get back into it, I'm hooked again. Or at least for the next few weeks or so. Anyway, I hope you enjoy watching me fumble through the development process of this still untitled game. I knew I wanted to make a top-down pixel art game for my first one, hoping not to spend too much time on the art and focus more on the coding and just learning to navigate the Unity editor. It didn't exactly go like that later on, but I at least knew the rough type of game I was making. I wanted it to be like one of these tile-based games, so I could make a simple sprite sheet and just reuse assets when needed. I'd had the idea for the core mechanic for a while before deciding to actually make it. The initial concept, which I've since noticed versions of in many games, is the challenge of controlling two characters in one space with the same controls, and getting both to their respective objectives. Making them work together to do things like open doors or teleport, while making sure each one avoids things like spikes or glue or other hazards. Before coming up with the extra mechanics, the main idea revolved around having a grid-based movement system, where one character mirrors the other character's moves, and they both use stationary objects in the world to position themselves. Imagine this is a character, I'll call them green, and this is the other character, orange, who, in this case, will mirror green's movements along the y-axis specifically. Right, left, up, down, simple stuff. In this basic example level, this character has to get to this goal, and this character has to get to this goal, and this is just a wall which can't be moved. If the player presses right, orange moves left into green's goal, but nothing happens, and since the wall blocks green's movement, they stay in the cell they are in. So, using that mechanic, how would you solve it from this state? Up? Okay. Right, down? Alright. Right, then what? Really? It's down. Both characters have reached their respective objectives and the level is passed. How fun! So I set up a new Unity project and did the first thing you do for almost any new game. I got the character moving around Unity's ominous blue background. The grid-based movement worked okay at high speeds and when pausing between moves, but after decreasing the movement speed in the editor, you can see this little bathroom tile has a little trouble with corners. I knew a solution to that, but moved on to collisions anyway, since the little white dot is the actual character and the square is just a placeholder sprite. I came up with this monstrosity, which I was actually quite proud of at the time. It has one square collider in each of the 4 cardinal directions. If any of the 4 colliders enter another collider, like the wall, that direction is set to inaccessible, and the bathroom tile will move or not move accordingly. Anyway, I cleaned up my code a bit to fix that, and everything seemed to be working fine, until I was testing certain edge cases, like with this illegal Tetris piece, where it worked when 1 or 2 of the colliders were nearby, but when surrounded by 3, yeah. Also, this design means there are always 4 active colliders as objects in the hierarchy, or 8 or 12 once the mirror characters are implemented. And that just felt messy, even besides the fact that this would technically slow the game down. Then I found the OverlapCircle class and deleted my entire collision code. It was literally back to square one, or back to 1 square. OverlapCircle is a Unity class that basically acts as a temporary collider, checking a circular area with a radius length of my choice in a location of my choice. It was exactly what I needed for this type of movement. Implementing it in the code was relatively simple. My player controller script takes the raw user input in the horizontal and vertical directions, basically the arrow keys on a keyboard or the left analog stick on a controller, and gives that direction vector to the OverlapCircle function along with the layer that's being checked. If the function returns false, it didn't detect a collider in that direction, the character is moved and the player controller script is ready to take in another input. I added a new wall to the project and gave it a 2D box collider for my new OverlapCircle script to check for. I had the character's collision detection back to where it was before, but I knew I could rest assured that it was all running much more efficiently under the bonnet. It also meant that I didn't have to solve whatever was happening when it was surrounded by 3 walls. I then added the ability to make a character into a mirror character in the editor. Basically, the character's player controller script checks to see if the boolean isMirror is true, and if the player makes a horizontal movement, the character is moved in the opposite direction. The same thing goes for vertical movement if the character moves with rotational symmetry. The mirror character is spawned at a location relative to the non-mirror character, and I've also given it an opacity of 60% to differentiate between them when testing. Here I have 1 non-mirror character and 1 that mirrors it along the y-axis only. Once I had the character and its ghostly mirror moving around properly, I added the walls back in to test for collision with both characters. Seeing them move around and interact with the walls in the way they had in my head was such a great feeling. I stayed on the screen for ages just making them wander around aimlessly. So when I was editing, this video started getting dangerously close to 20 minutes before even finishing, so I decided to cut it in half. I know I spent the first half of this one yapping about things unrelated to the game, but they'll hopefully be a bit more focused from now on. In the next one I get into the art and animations for the main character and the sprites for the other world objects. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video and the development process so far. I have way too much footage of working on this game, so there'll probably be a few more devlogs of this one, but I also plan on making some other games with hopefully more condensed videos. Alright, see ya folks, have a good one.